recording that will be available after, and any resources that we have and anybody's providing for that, you'll put it in the chat. And also of our speakers will also put their information in the chat, so that I send you the chat as well as the video. And if anybody has any resources, then you can also forward them to me. And when I send out that email tomorrow, I will attach it to the email. Please keep yourself mute if there's chatter in the background. We want to make sure that we hear everything everyone has to say. So with that, I am going to introduce or turn it over to Mr. Stephen Turner so he can introduce himself and who he's representing, and then he will introduce our guests.
Thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome.
Again, my name is Stephen Turner. Crystal, as you mentioned, some of the housekeeping. You will be on mute, but we will bring you in from guests. I'm the managing principal of the State Group. We're a risk management insurance firm providing employee benefits, property and casualty, and commercial insurance. So when this particular epidemic happened, some of my clients who have that bandwidth, anywhere from 10 to 30 employees or more, they felt the burden of that. So along with the Black Business Association, we partnered with Recycling Back Dollars, as well as other organizations, how we can address some of the economic as well as the social as well as health issues affecting our small business community. And with that being said, we have brought together a stellar group of individuals to share their knowledge and what's taking place. And one of those I have the pleasure of introducing is Angela Gibson. Angela is bring it up right quick, is the president of the Greater African American Chamber. She's a public affairs veteran, more than 35 years experience. Prior to joining GLAAAC and heading that up, Angela had a distinguished career as an executive for AT&T. She served on a number of different boards, and Angela has, from her point of view, have seen the landscape of small African American business, and we look forward to her sharing that knowledge in her intake. Angela?
Okay, wanted to make sure I'm off mute. And good morning, everyone. Hope all is well. And this is a very timely subject that we're talking about in terms of reopening Los Angeles. That's going to be happening soon. And how can businesses get ready for what we're going to call the new normal? And so first of all, let me thank Crystal and Stephen for putting together these COVID-19 briefings. This is a very vital instrument that's needed and a vehicle that's needed in our community to get the word out. And so I appreciate you guys being in the trenches, turning this on, turning this up every Thursday, bringing people together, because you could be asleep. I mean, you could be doing other things. And so again, thank you so much for all that you do. Let me begin. I've got a couple of comments. First of all, if you're still in business, congratulations. And so we are now getting ready to prepare for this new normal. And I've just got a couple of suggestions that I'm going to share about how to survive and thrive, maybe in what we're going to call this post-COVID-19. And so we're asking our business to start to create a plan, maybe a 30, a 60, and a 90-day plan that will triage your personnel, your inventory, your finances, your marketing, and your communication. One of the things that I've heard lately is folk talk about how to reopen if you've got a brick and mortar place, if you've got a building that you go to. When the stay-at-home order is lifted, make sure that your facility is sanitized completely before you bring folk back into that building. Will you be providing PPE equipment, or will you be asking them to provide PPE equipment? That means, the mask and the wipes and the sanitizer. And also, if you have employees, what is that relationship and how does that work with your medical provider? And how does the employee get coming back to work? How do they feel? What if they want to leave? And so you want to make sure that you've researched some of those issues. And for some of the businesses that I've been speaking with, they even needed to involve OSHA. And so make sure, first of all, that your employees and your contractors and who you deal with are returning to the office correctly. And also make sure that it is reorganized for social distancing. And next, you want to take a look at your policy for your vendors, your customers, and your guests. How do they come to, I was thinking about, delivering water and mail and FedEx and UPS. Are you going to ask them to leave it at the door? Are you going to greet them and take it from them if a signature is needed? So think about various deliveries that are made to your office and what is going to be the policy. You might want to write a note and put it on the door. That's what we did at GLAAC. And so we asked them to call us. And then we understood what it was they wanted. And if it was something they could leave at the door, then they did that. And so what it's going to be critical to communicate to our customers, and then also communicate to them that you are back open, especially if you're a consultant, maybe that's been out of work or you've been on hiatus, you've been sheltering in place. Communicate with your clients. Let them know now that the order's been lifted, you're back in business. You want to see how they are going to reopen. You want to be clear about what your expectations are of how you will continue to consult with them and provide your service in this new normal. So there's just kind of a couple of hints and tips on moving forward in the new normal, but I also want to make sure that we know that there's still funding available. And so I hope that everybody on the call has applied for something. Apply for something. There's lots, not I'm going to say lots, I think there is lots, but you've got to apply completely and correctly. From what I understand, many of the applications for the PPP and other portals of funds, many of them were denied because someone would say their name or the name of their business was Angela Gibson, and then the records and the articles of incorporation or whatever said Angela D. Gibson. And they're really small things that will have your application rejected. And so you want to sit down and make sure that you are correctly completing all of the applications, but please apply for something. I think during this time, I hope that we all took the opportunity to get educated, get certified, take a class. Now that we are about to reopen Los Angeles, there are a number of boot camps that are taking place, and corporations and organizations are now going to be taking small businesses through a series of boot camps to be able to help them with that new normal, I guess, if you will. At GLAAC, we have a program called the Business Evolution Program, and we take our small group of our members through various sessions on certification, financing, access to capital, back office skills, and then we also partner them with our board members who represent Fortune 500, AT&T, Union Bank, Wells Fargo, CIT, OneWest, Microsoft, and have them provide some of that extra mentoring and extra grooming, because that really is what a lot of our small business need. They need a lot of mentoring and help with navigating through the process. A lot of us are good at what we do, but let's reach out for help with what we don't know, what we don't do, what we know isn't our strength. And so there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, we need to do more of that, reaching out and getting support. Of course, the government and the utilities, and there's still a lot of industries that are still open. I understand that if you can do anything in the medical field, you can be a millionaire. You can distribute and make masks and sanitizers and gowns and all the things that the medical needs. You can market that to not only hospitals, but large companies that are going to need that moving forward. So again, find your tribe, make sure that you're coming to places like this. Also make sure that you're going to the VSEDC with Joe, California Black Chamber. I'm sure I have attended at least a couple of hundred webinars and seminars on different subjects. I've seen them industry specific. I've seen them very generic. I've seen them very detailed. But I think when this Los Angeles reopens, there's going to be a new normal. And either you're going to stay in the lane that you started in, and you're going to have to up your online game considerably. And so I think you need to take some time and understand how to operate some of these chats in these Zooms, and also update your website, figure out how to do more marketing online using Facebook and Instagram, and just creating and putting your arms around your whole social media platform as a business. That's how you're going to get back into the game. It's going to be very competitive, and the curtain's not going to be lifted and people are going to run out of the streets all at once for your services. And so you're going to need to pace yourself with your 30, 60, 90-day plan. If you build it, they will come. But it's going to take a minute for us when we get back out to get over being a little skittish about getting back out and interacting or, there are funds, people's funds are funny. And so you're going to have to wait until they have money. If you're going to stay online with your business, that too will take some time to get back on track. And so, like I said, again, continue to support these kinds of seminars. GLAAAC is hosting a webinar on May 14th at 10 a.m. about returning to work and other issues that we'll explore on things you need to consider about how to return to work. And so again, like I said, establish a relationship with your bank. A lot of us got left out because we didn't have a relationship with our bank. I'm not sure, I got Wells Fargo. I don't know the guy, but as soon as they lift the curtain, I'm going in to meet him. Or if not, call him and make myself known to him. Especially all those banks I'm thinking over there in Ladera. Those are folks, those are brothers and sisters. We need to go in there and establish relationships with them. I understand there is going to be some new funding available from Congress, that it's not over. I don't know what it looks like. And I know that you guys maybe will talk about that later, and we can talk about that some more. And I know that you guys asked me to provide a few comments on that and also talk about what we can do to work together. And I don't know if we want to stop and take a break or move around or pause or take questions. But I have some commentary too on working together, but let me know.
Let's take a few questions, and Angela is absolutely correct. There's a lot of us that have activities or workshops going on. I have one so that you can get your financials together, because as Joe will tell you when he talks, that, and we've been saying this week after week after week, you have to have your financials together in order, one, to apply for anything, and two, in order to plan. You can't do a 30 for 60, 90-day plan if you don't know where your money is. So, and how your money is going to come in. So there's a software I found that is, the software is absolutely free. I'm not, but the software is absolutely free. I am at a discounted rate just right now. And I'm really encouraging you. I can get you in 6 hours. I can get you where you actually have some working financials. So you don't want to pass up to $69. We can make that happen. Also, you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of whatever Zooms and meetings and coming up. Get ready, because you're gonna have to be ready. There's a sister, and this is just an injection I read yesterday. She was 20 years old. She sold out all her product in 9 minutes on Instagram, and she had a cosmetic line. It's called Moon X Cosmetics. She has come out of business because she has no more stock. She sold and made over $1 million in 9 minutes just a couple days ago. So we can make this happen. That's a 20-year-old. So anybody have any questions for Angela?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Angela, can you hear me?
Yes.
One question I have: what kind of resources does GLAAAC have for small business owners? And more important than that, first of all, what are some of the successes have you seen, as well as some of the failures? I know quite often we talk about those who submitted applications and were denied. From where you stand, have you seen any successes with the various programs, whether it be the payroll protection or the economic injury disaster loan?
Thank you. Yes, we have seen some successes. We actually sent out a survey of our membership about a week ago, and we asked our members who had applied and were they approved and were they denied. And it was about half and half. Then we dug a little deeper for those that were not approved. Who did you apply to? And so we had a couple of stories where some of our members applied to the larger financial institutions, the big banks, and they were denied for little bitty stuff, from what they told me. And then they went to some of the smaller CDFIs and some of the credit unions and the PCRs and different places, and were able to get a little more hand-holding, walking through the application, and they were successful in getting their funds. And so, yeah, I've heard a lot of our members getting the PPP. Of course, now there's the PUA, the unemployment for sole proprietors and consultants and contractors. And so you can go online and get funding and unemployment benefits as a consultant if you lost all of your work, or if you lost some of your work as a consultant, you can go online and apply. And again, you got to apply for something. There's so much out there. And I know you guys have talked about Facebook's had money and add credits. Again, that's going to help with the online marketing. We also at GLAAAC are beginning to kick off our webinars, and we talk about, of course, access to capital, certification, how to apply, the normal things that we do. But I think our strength is in our BEP program. Rhonda Jackson recently, well, she started out designing office spaces, and she had a couple government contracts and some other contracts. And I think when that kind of dried up, she then pivoted, and she then took all of the equipment that she was using to design workspace, and she now has offering a service to sanitize businesses before they open. And so as a sister, she can do it on a small scale or a large scale. So that's what we talk about, like when it's time to pivot, if you're going to go into a different business or maybe expand your portfolio. But that requires some real thought and research. And so, yeah.
Also, I'd like to applaud GLAAAC, Circling Back Dollars, Vermont, Slauson, EDC, the various community organizations working together to address the needs of the Black community. I know yesterday you, along with Edwin Lombard, had a conversation with Senator Harris about a proposed legislation. I don't know if you can share that, or Mr. Lombard, how's that going to affect the Black business community?
So yesterday, yes, United States Senator Kamala Harris announced an act that she is introduced called Saving Our Street Act. And what it's going to do, it is going to provide critical funding to micro businesses and small nonprofits. And specifically, the legislation is going to provide up to $250,000 in direct grants, because that's what we need, grants, not loans. We need grants to small businesses or nonprofits through a newly established micro business assistance fund, because that's the other group of people that truly got left out, was the micro businesses, especially the mom and pops. They don't have the access to that technology, and online and completing those applications for some businesses, I'm sure, is going to be a nightmare. And they're going to be able to use these micro business grants for payroll, rent and mortgage, utilities, and other business expenses. Then they're going to set aside some of that money to fund historically underrepresented businesses, including minority-owned and veteran-owned businesses. Again, those very, very small mom and pops. And most importantly, and I think what we need to encourage and ensure for our public policy is requiring a report about the ethnicity, race, industry, and demographics of this grant money and some of this PPP money too as well. I think we need to start as small businesses getting together and demanding the data. And so this was the Save Our Street Act that the senator introduced yesterday. And I don't know, Edwin, if you wanted to weigh in on some other commentary she provided.
No, she was adamant about this, and the main thing is she's deeply concerned about the micro businesses like the barbershops, the beauty salons, CPA, small CPA firms that do taxes for people, law firms, small, individual law firms and things of that nature. And she wanted to make sure that these organizations are kept whole as we come out of COVID-19. And Angela, I think it's great that you are providing information on how to come out of COVID-19, because as the states are being pressured to open up so businesses can do more business, we have to be very concerned about the public health aspect of this, because African Americans are dying at a rate far greater than any other race in the United States from this pandemic. Now, we want to open up our businesses and start generating income as soon as we can, but we also want to be conscious about the health issue and make sure that we're not killing each other off and making a way for someone else doing their job for them. The other thing I wanted to say was Assemblywoman Shirley Weber at the state of California has an act, it's the ACR 5. It's a repeal of Prop 209. And with the last statement that Angela spoke about, where they're making them generate a report to say, what is the ethnicity and the race of these individuals that are receiving these grants? Repealing Prop 209 is exactly what we need to have happen in the state of California. We lose more business from the state than any other race because of Prop 209. So if you can, please support Prop 209. It's ACA 5. It's in the legislature right now. It's being moved through. It just got passed out of one committee, and it's going to be going to a PROPS. You know, start paying attention. If you can, go to the California Black Chamber of Commerce website. That's calblackchamber.com. calblackchamber.com. I will post information about how to enact so that we can repeal Prop 209 in this year, so that we can move forward and start receiving some of these very lucrative state contracts. So thank you very much, Angela. Awesome information. I greatly appreciate all that you do down at GLAAAC.
May I ask a question?
Thank you, Edwin.
Yes.
Mr. Edwin, could you give some details on Prop 209? If I remember correctly, that was the civil rights statute that was passed several years ago.
Oh, this was back in the 80s. This was passed back in the 80s, and basically what it did was,
yes,
it lifted the requirement.
Could you mention?
We're gonna let Joe come in and Mr. Dr. Allen, is that what yeah, Dr. Allen. And then after Joe Rouzan speaks, then we can have Edwin inform us what 209 is, and also direct us to other information that we can get more details on that. And maybe we can have him back to talk about that, if that's something that we really should be focusing on. So I hope that's okay with you, Doctor?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. So I appreciate it. So is Joe still there, Steve? So Angela, thank you so much. Did anyone else have any other questions of Angela? Okay, so if you do have questions, please put it in the chat, and then we can also direct them to her. And when I send out the recording, I can address that with you. And Angela, if you don't mind, could you send me over that checklist you were doing so I can remind people of what that is? We'd really appreciate that. All righty, Stephen, you want to introduce Mr. Joe Rouzan?
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Joseph, as many people call him, Joe Rouzan III.
Yes.
Joe is the president and CEO of Vermont, Slauson, VSEDC. In that capacity, he's helping small and minority business in the service area with technical assistance, navigating through the maze of how to get help to survive the process. Prior to being at the Vermont Slauson EDC, Joe was director of the City of Los Angeles Business Source Center, overseeing the center throughout Los Angeles and operating $4.5 million annual budget. He's also been the manager of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. He'll probably share that to you, as well as a former police officer. Joe holds a bachelor's degree in science administration from Cal State Dominguez Hill. Further ado, Mr. Joseph Rouzan III.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Every time I hear those type of introductions, it makes it sound like I can't keep a job. So I'm very thankful that where I am. First, I'd just like to thank Crystal and Stephen for inviting Vermont Slauson, and I have a couple of my colleagues, Andrea Solomon, who runs our business source centers, or center contract for South LA, as well as Dolores Brown, who runs our lending unit. She's on the conference as well, and Terry Gubaton, the personality of Vermont Slauson. So, and I see a lot of my friends and colleagues on this. So Mel Bennett, and I only have 10 to 12 minutes, so I don't want to acknowledge everybody, but just good to see everybody, even if it's distanced. It's just nice to see some faces for a while, other than me sitting in my man cave outside with my stogie and my happy hour cocktail that I've tended to do on a few occasions. So in all seriousness, I do want to piggyback on what Angela said, and she's so on point, but I wanted to just drive the conversation a little bit about the PPP. And, you know, being in the second round, we've had now some way of judging the successes, what worked, what didn't work. Clearly for us, we can always look at the banks, we can blame the banks, and there's some blame due. There's some banks that, quite frankly, didn't play fair then, and there's a few that still aren't playing fair now. But from the reports that I just read this morning, there is a shift. I'm cautiously optimistic that the folks that should be getting these funds are getting these funds. And, you know, and to Angela's point, it's so critically important, not just for now because we're in an emergency crisis, but just as a way of operating your business, you got to have your stuff in order. And you got to have a relationship. You should know who your banker is. And you need to know who these folks are. So that's critically important. And it's also important that we have our stuff together. And one of the things that my business coaches have found, and Terry Gubaton might be able to chime in or maybe follow up after this call, is that we found out that our clients weren't ready. They didn't have their paperwork in order. They didn't have a profit and loss statement. They had commingled bank statements with personal and business expenses. You can't submit that. So for Vermont Slauson, that's huge for us because that's an indictment on us. We got to do a better job of preparing our businesses because this is not the last round. And it's not going to be the last opportunity for businesses to be able to capitalize on funding, both on the private and public side. So I wanted to make that point. Vermont Slauson is a CDFI, and that's critically important for a couple reasons. One, the banks need us to meet their CRA obligations, and two, it provides us an opportunity to lend money to our community directly. And this, to me, also was an oversight and, quite frankly, a failure on behalf of the government by not including some of the local CDFIs initially and the credit unions to participate, boots on the ground, to make sure that these dollars got into the hands of the folks that needed it the most. We do have, and I don't know how many of you know, there is another CDFI, not so much serving South LA, but that we're partnering with, which is the USC Credit Union. Now that might seem a little obscure, but it's important because that's a significant institution that has an obligation to fund loans into South LA. So I'm working with the president, who happens to be African-American, Gary Perez, who's a good guy, and we've established an MOU with them as well. We also have a relationship with PCR, who Mark Robertson and I have really locked arms. I see Colette's on the line. Colette, thank you so much for what you're doing in partnership with us and allowing us to help you deliver these loans to our community. And I just tell you, PCR has really stepped up, and we've helped them with a pipeline of candidates that many of them of which have been funded in the second round. So thank them. What is business going to look like? You know, as people go back, one of the things that we have to do, we've done, and I'm going to let Andrea talk a little bit about it in a minute, is how we've shifted the way we do business in terms of our technical assistance. The city contracts with us to provide technical assistance to pre-startups and startups. But let's be real. Who would want to start a business right at this moment? What we're focusing on right now is a shift in emergency relief services to our businesses. So our entire staff is all shifting and to help these businesses address a number of different issues. How do I work remotely? Can I work remotely? What do I do to get my employees back? And that's critically important because you got to remember, this PPP is not a grant unless you bring your employees back. And so we've engaged with our worksource centers to get our small businesses connected so they can take care of their employees to make sure if they're disengaged that they can bring them back within that time before June 30th. And so those are other critical issues. And just as a side point, a couple of things that we're most proud of is, for those that don't know, we're building a multi-million-dollar technology center in the heart of South LA at 61st and Western, in partnership with the Annenberg Foundation and Best Buy. And this will be the first building in South LA, other than USC, that Annenberg will be putting their name on along with us. It's going to teach everything from robotics to digital photography. We'll have 2 sound studios to be able to do short films. So it's going to be quite a nice facility right in the heart of our community. And then I just want to close with just how important collaboration is. Back in November, I had 19 South LA nonprofits and leaders assembled at Vermont Slauson to talk about collaboration. What are we doing? You'd be amazed. And I knew everybody in that room, but what I didn't know is what everybody was doing. And so I think this is going to be another opportunity for us to really step up our game. You know, what's Vermont Slauson doing? What's Lori Gay at Neighborhood Housing doing? What's GLAAAC doing? We need to understand what we're doing, and that we're not stepping on toes, but working together. So with that, I'm going to just shift, if I can, real quickly. I know I got 10 to 12 minutes, and I'm watching my clock, Crystal. And so I just wanted Andrea just to talk a little bit about our Business Source program and what we've done in terms of helping some of our clients actually get funding.
Thank you, Joe. Andrea, is she there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfectly. Well, thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for having VSEDC here today. For those of you who are not familiar with Business Source, I think I would like to start there just to be clear that we all understand what Business Source is. And basically, the Los Angeles Business Source Center is a community development block grant CDBG funded program. It's a program from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD. And basically what we do is we provide training and technical assistance to micro enterprises and small businesses with an emphasis on job creation and job retention. There are currently 8 Business Source centers that are located throughout the Los Angeles County. And I will have to say that VSEDC, South LA Business Source, has really stepped up their game. So we are contracted with the Economic Workforce Development Department. And with that, we have to provide a scope of services. So I would have to say, right now, we have about 105 businesses that are onboarded through our onboarding system that we created. And those 105 businesses are current COVID-19 onboarding clients. So that's quite a few clients who have actually went on our website and have taken the time out to onboard their businesses to seek assistance through this crisis. We have an amazing team. We have business coaches who are here to help support this process and help businesses get through this crisis. So prior to COVID-19, we provided technical assistance. We hosted multiple workshops, and we also provided access to capital for those businesses who really needed it, because we have excellent banking relationships. And again, like Joe said, we are also a CDFI. So since COVID-19, we had to transition over to a different type of service. So now, of course, we are remote, and we provide webinars weekly. Those webinars are posted on our VSEDC website as well. And we also have an amazing social media platform. So with that being said, that's pretty much what Business Source is.
What I think, if I can too, and thank you, Andrea, but she's been a bit modest. 8 Business Source centers in the city of Los Angeles, and Vermont Slauson is the #1 producer. We're at scale. We actually maxed out 4 months ahead of the contract, meeting all the mandates of the contract. So we're the #1 producer of jobs in the entire city of Los Angeles from all the centers.
I didn't want to boast that. I just kind of,
Yeah, well, I thought you would do it, but I did it for you. But
yes, thank you. I feel safer.
And under Andrea's leadership and Terry Gubaton working alongside with her, really proud of the work that they're doing. Andrea spent 25 years with the city of LA, so we were able to borrow her.
Yes, I was with Family Source for a very long time at the Tom Bradley Family Source Center. So I'm very strongly an advocate with our community and our community businesses. We also have.
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Because Crystal's gonna give you the hook if I don't. So,
Okay.
Crystal.
The time. I'm sorry about that.
Right. So, Crystal, do I have 2 minutes to let Dolores just talk about the CDFI?
Yeah, can you talk about the CSF and do you or Ed know? I know it's just being talked about the Save Our Streets, the SOS that that Senator Harris was speaking on. I know we don't have a lot of details, but if we can kind of give them a prelude for what we are going to be talking about and why it's important that we get everybody on board.
Sure. So did you want Ed to go now, or do you want me to go?
You can finish up with it to talk about the CS because I don't know if anybody understands what that means.
Crystal, what I wanted to point that Jill had made, it kind of affects Malcolm Bennett and the Minority Apartment Owners Association. And I just wanted to have Malcolm, representing the minority apartment owners, share with you what you're seeing from landlords.
Oh, that's important.
Because they are business owners and they have operating expense as well as mortgages to pay themselves. Malcolm? Let me unmute you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Steve, Crystal, for putting this program together.
Hey,
these are certainly some unprecedented times that we're in, and it's just great that you guys put this program together. And just as Steve indicated, there's a lot of focus and really a lot of need for so many tenants that were already what they call rent burden because of the rents in LA. But I think the one thing that piece that was kind of missing at the start when they were looking at all the tenant protections, the fact that we have so many small mom and pop owners that rely on those rents in order to pay their mortgage payment, the taxes, and those ongoing expenses. So this has taken a really a burden on a lot of our people. Some of the larger companies and larger developers, certainly they've taken a hit as well, but it's the small owners that we're trying to help. And fortunately, we've been working with Congressman Waters. She's introducing a bill on Friday that's designed to help small mom and pop property owners. And also we're working with MRT's office on the phone with them yesterday. There has to be some assistance. As you know, in the ordinance, during this period of time, tenants cannot be evicted for non-payment of rent for close to a 4-month period. There are very few owners that could go 4 months without having rents on their buildings. People have talked to the lenders about some relief. Some of them have offered a forbearance agreement, but they're not waiving any of the mortgage payments that are due. I see Joe shaking his head because we've talked to some of them, and even some of them that offered a forbearance during this 4 or 5 month period. But when the ordinance is lifted, they want a lump sum payment of the back dues. That's impossible if you can't pay it monthly. 4 months, and how are you going to pay a $10,000 in fees? So we're trying to help those. And fortunately, we'll be getting out some information later on today. I'll be widespreading it regarding Congressman Waters' bill that's designed to be able to help these small mom and pop owners that, and some of my clients are just barely hanging on during this time. So once again, that was just some of the unintended consequences. It seemed like a lot of people just think that because the people own an apartment building, that they just own it outright, and the rents they collect, that's just their money that they use to get along with. But there are very few owners that don't have a mortgage payment on these buildings. And when you look at the mortgage payment, tax, insurance, ongoing expenses, we still have to maintain these buildings. And a lot of owners just feel, even they understand the plight of tenants, and we have a lot of good tenants that we're trying to work with that have lost their jobs and can't afford to pay the rent. But you understand the owners thinking like, you know, I'm depleting my savings and I still have to maintain these buildings. Tenants still call repairs, and I'm not collecting any money. So it's a real issue. So hopefully people on this call and other people really understand the plight, and we're really working with our elected officials, get them to understand. We sympathize with tenants and we're trying to work with them, but understand that we're under the gun as well with these mortgage companies, that they're not forgiving any mortgage payment. They're giving us a forbearance and they reduce late fees, and we got them to the point they won't report us to the credit agency during that time, which will make it that much worse for a property owner. And realizing that these banks know what's going on, so you're not going to be able to walk into a bank and get a loan on a building that you're not collecting any rents on. So that's a non-starter. So once again, so thank everybody, and anything I can do. And Minority Apartment Owners Association is working with a lot of the other agencies in terms of trying to get some relief for our small mine owners. And thank you so much for this time. Crystal, Steve, thanks again. Angela, so good to see you. It's been a while. Always good to see you, Joe, and thank you for everything.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
anything I can do out here.
Malcolm,
Thank
can you put
you.
your contact information in the chat box? for
Yeah,
those
Malcolm,
who-
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stephen.
Malcolm, can you put your information in the chat box?
I will.
Follow up.
Yeah, I'll put my information in the chat box.
And maybe Joe can respond to this. I believe I saw on the SBA site that there is something there for homeowner, apartment renters, or renters and homeowners, and landlords or owners of multiple unit buildings, about there is some resources there. So maybe Joe, you can talk about that, or we can bring somebody to talk about that. And Malcolm, that's excellent. There's two questions for you, Joe. Are there any small business resources left to apply for COVID-19 for either the EIDL or the PPP? And the second question is, do you have to have a business located in the Vermont Slauson area to be able to apply for support?
You want me
All right, so the quick answer to your question is no, you do not have to be in the city of Los Angeles. The only regulations we have on being a city resident or having a business in the city of LA, if we bring you under Andrea's Business Source program, but we service everybody who needs help. And some of those clients, such as Simply Wholesome, for example, was one of our clients that was funded. They're actually in the county, so we do that. Before I answer the question about the apartment owners and the relief for owners, I just want to say that our focus has been primarily on the business side, on the economic development side with small businesses. But I do want to say this to Malcolm's point. He's absolutely right in terms of these bankers and these mortgages. They're going to want their money. But also these landlords are going to want their money from these tenants. And it's very easy to fall prey to this. Well, I don't have to pay rent right now. And then that balloon hits them and they've got to pay this rent. So, what we're looking at in potential homelessness, people being out on the streets, is another huge component that's going to impact small business as well. So we always have to keep that on the table as well. But I'm not really the best to speak on that issue, Crystal. It's probably best that I defer to someone else.
Okay, so I will see if we can get someone from the SBA, because I thought I saw something. So we'll Stephen and I will look into that, because I think that's a very viable conversation to have. Also, for those, and Joe, and you and I know this, that a great deal of our businesses are 1 to 2. If no employees, they're sole proprietors. And so for those independent contractors, those in the gig industry, if you apply for unemployment in the very, very beginning, you need to go back and apply for unemployment right now, because they have redesigned it and incorporated resources and assistance for your independent contractor and your sole proprietor. All you have to do is provide them with your net annual return from your profit and loss statement, your net profit, and then they will generate and go through whatever, and they will calculate your unemployment based upon that. It starts a minimum of $167 plus for 39 weeks, plus $600 from the federal government until July. I know it works because I just been approved, just to make sure that it was that it does work. So it does work, and I know a couple of other people have. So I would say, when you get off this call today, go on unemployment. That's the uiincome.edd.ca.gov. I'll put the information in the chat, and apply today, because you will get a backup. You will get a check from March 5th or March 21st up until today. That could actually help pay your rent if it's out. And so then the landlords can get, because if there's no income coming in, I get it. We all are panicked right now, but apply for the PPP, apply for the EIDL, and any other grants out there. Just because we say that there's no more, we're saying that some people are not getting it. Don't let that stop you from applying. Let them tell you no. Don't let the world tell you no. All righty. So any other question? Oh, someone on said, Rosalind Barmore said she was able to get her PPP. And let's see, she was approved. And what is the max for unemployment? Well, depends on your income.
I got my unemployment,
Oh,
not
okay.
not PPP. I got my unemployment, and like you said, I had applied earlier and didn't get it, and then I applied on the 28th when it opened up, and I did get it. So I was just notified like day before yesterday. But what is the maximum outside of the $600?
Well, depending on whatever they calculate it for your unemployment, the minimum is $167. But then I think if you have reserves in your unemployment, then I think that's taken into consideration as well. Because I know some people have gotten they're self-employed, but they were working before they started their new business, and they had never applied for unemployment before.
Okay.
And then also for the SBA loans, when I first opened my business just over 3 years ago, I received an SBA loan, and I did apply again. And I was just very fortunate. I got an email yesterday that my loan officer that was my loan officer over 3 years ago, she's my current loan officer now. And what she wrote to me and said was that because they were trying to handle all the PPP loans, that all the other loan requests was kind of put to the side, but now they're kind of getting caught up on that. So she said that she'll be in contact with me in the next couple of days to move forward with my loan.
Oh, excellent.
Hey, Crystal,
Yes,
I just want to
gentlemen.
make a point also. We also encountered this issue, and if everybody on this call can make sure they share with your constituents, your friends, your family, you can apply to multiple institutions. Because you applied with Wells Fargo, you haven't heard from them, move on. In fact, we've been telling our clients, there's certain banks we know that are not community friendly. I'm just gonna be honest. We know those that have in our list. We've done $1.2 million in small business through the PPP and a couple other small programs with the city. And so my team has been working directly with those clients, but we tell them, you know, if you don't have a relationship, and I'm just gonna be honest with B of A, if you don't have a relationship with B of A, you're wasting your freaking time. You're just wasting your time. And there's some others, and I don't want to go through naming, but we also know that there's some that are very friendly, like Co-America or City National Bank. We have clients that went to City National with no relationship that got funded. So there's banks that want to do the right thing, and there's some that really don't give a crap about us, okay? So, but I say, don't just apply to one and you're waiting. Well, I'm still waiting. Don't wait. Keep applying to find another bank. Come to Vermont Slauson. We'll help you.
There you
Great
go.
advice, Joe. You know, I got approved for PPP as well as several of my clients, and our lender was Bank of America. So it's hit and miss.
Well, bless you.
But and also we have people on the line like Joe, like Gregory Sneed, who's helped a number of nonprofits get a PPP loan. And before I bring Greg up to talk about that, we talk about the business aspect of it, but we also have to be concerned about our health. I mean, we're fortunate to have the gentleman on the line, Richard Allen Williams, who's a neighbor of mine in Encino, who's president of the Minority Health Institute. He graduate of Harvard, MD, as well as UCLA, but yet he's committed to the community, and particularly apologetic, the Black community, and our health. Dr. Williams, just can you share a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on the Black community?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for inviting me to make some comments. Before I begin, I don't know whether you can see this or not, but I'm putting up.
Up. Lift it up. There you go. I'll put it in the chat room.
Can you see that?
MINST. Yes, I got it.
.org. That's
Okay.
that's
Got
the
it. You can put that down now. Okay.
That's the website for the Minority Health Institute, which I established 35 years ago for the purpose of trying to do exactly what we're attempting to do today with the COVID-19 situation. I want to just offer a little bit of philosophy before I get into what Stephen had asked me to talk about. and that is a little philosophy from something that I've studied a bit intimately, and that's the Chinese philosophy. In Mandarin Chinese, there's a word for crisis, which actually is represented by two symbols. I'll be very brief with this. One symbol is danger, and the other symbol is opportunity. And so this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis, really, even though it's a dangerous situation, offers us some opportunities to do some things that we'll be talking about, and we are talking about on this webinar. And I want everybody to think about this at the time that we're suffering so much. Now, before I go further, I wanted to mention a couple of questions that I have. One is whether or not there's a tutorial that anybody has established for micro businesses which are looking to benefit from this situation and take the opportunities that we're talking about. Because as someone mentioned, there are a number of micro businesses, small businesses, which don't have the capability or the knowledge as to how to proceed. And it helps if there's some tutorial that might be set up perhaps through this webinar to answer their questions and guide them. So I just wanted to throw that in before I got started on what I was asked to talk about.
I think that's an excellent idea, and also send out referrals to all of the entities that are coming on board to talk about it. I think that's excellent. And Dr. I will look into making sure that it takes place.
Thank you. Now, the reason I showed you my website is because of the fact that the Minority Health Institute has established a repository of information for the community, which we want anybody to add to, not only medical information, but business information. We're attempting to impact upon some of the hardships that people in the Black community are suffering in any capacity. And so if you have some information that you can put on the website for people to access, we invite you to do so. And by the same token, we would like for you to go to our website if you want to receive information, especially as to the impact that the COVID-19 crisis is having disparately on the Black community. So having said that, let me just get into what I was asked to talk about, and that's the disparate impact of COVID-19 on the Black community. That has been well established, and we've known for over a month now that Black people are especially and disproportionately affected by COVID-19. We're not sure exactly why, but we suspect that we know why. It's basically because of the fact that what we call healthcare disparities have been so rampant throughout our history. I can't go intimately into details about what that means. Suffice it to say that ever since slavery, we've been having a difficulty with quality healthcare delivery to the Black community. And that has led to a number of comorbidities that have developed, including hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease, cancer, virtually any disease that you can name. I've written 9 books about all of this. I can't tell you enough right now about all of that, but my most recent book just was published last week. It's called Blacks in Medicine, and you can get information about that book on the website that I told you about before, because it has a lot of background information as to why this is occurring to us, and all of us need to know about these facts. The next thing that I'd like to mention is that there really is not a dichotomy between the industry of medicine and industry in general. Medicine is a business. There's what we call the business of medicine. And everything that you've said today and will continue to say applies to the medical field. and especially in regards to African Americans who are in medicine. I'd like to mention that in regards to what we were talking about survival of Black businesses, that applies to Black medical practices as well. I was one of the persons that was on our program, our virtual webinar last Thursday, a week ago, was the CEO of the Los Angeles County Medical Association, Gustavo Friedrichsen. And he mentioned that it's anticipated that up to 90% of Black medical practices are in danger of failing based on the financial circumstances that they're facing now. So this is something obviously that has to be factored into the whole overall situation that we're talking about today.
And I absolutely agree. And Dr. Williams, I think we do need to talk about it. And you know, our Black businesses, it kind of encompasses everything. We do a little bit of everything, but we don't ever have enough capital to do a lot of anything. And that's the focus that we need to really talk about. But we will definitely maybe have you on again, and we can talk about the help, what we can do to protect ourselves or to enhance or our health, so that we won't be subjectable or to everything that comes along. So we want to, before we wrap up, there was someone from the SBA that could address. Terry, I think you said, Stephen?
Yeah, Terry Phillips.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Terry. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate Crystal and Stephen inviting SBA to address any questions that there may be on EIDL and PPP. So for those of you who've already applied for PPP and EIDL, if you have questions, let me know. For those of you who are on the phone and are interested in applying, the good news is for PPP, there still is money available. So if you haven't done your application, I encourage you to go to sba.gov and download the application and start going through the process of application. It's a pretty short 4-page application, 2 of which are instructions. So it's 1 page front and back. Once you do that part, then you can identify a lender. If you already work with a bank and they're accepting applications, then you're good to go. If not, you can use our Finder tool to help find a lender that is taking applications, or you could reach out to our office. We can help with that as well. So that's good news. I encourage you to do so quickly, because there is a spending cap. So just like the first round of PPP, that we hit the limit on the $349 billion that was originally allocated, there is a cap for the second round of funding as well. So the good news is there still is time, but if we hit that cap, there's no guarantee that there'll be any additional funding beyond, you know, that second tranche of funding. So please keep that in mind. In terms of application, once you get your application in with the lender, that process should go pretty quickly. If the lender submits to SBA via E-Tran, you should be able to get an SBA loan number pretty quickly. So once you begin working with your lender and you provide them any documents that they need and they go through the underwriting process with you, once they hit submit to SBA and you have an application number, the lender will have 10 days to disperse to you, and it's 10 calendar days. So from beginning to end, the process of application for PPP does roll relatively quickly. It's a—
Hey, Terry?
Yes?
Excuse me, can I just ask a quick question on the EIDL?
Sure.
I
Yes.
heard something which I have not had a chance to verify, and I'm glad you're on the call. Hello, by the way. And that was that the EIDL was being restricted just to agricultural related businesses right now. Is that true?
Yes. So I was just going to flip over to EIDL after I finished up on PPP. Just
Sorry
one more
about
thing
that.
on that. It's a 1% interest rate, and it is a 2-year note. So in the event that you apply for PPP and you don't use the loan proceeds as they are sort of designed, which is 75% of the loan proceeds are to be used for paychecks. Just like the name says, paycheck protection. So from the time of disbursement, you have 8 weeks to onboard the employees that have been laid off as a result of the pandemic at their previous pay rate, so pre-pandemic pay rate. You have that 8 weeks, and that's what that 75% of the loan covers. Then 25% of the PPP loan can be used for some overhead expenses, which is pretty strict in what it could be used for. It's used for interest expense for a mortgage if you own your building, or it could be used for rent expense, and there's some operating expense as well that could be included. But 75% is paychecks, 25% is to be used for that strict category of overhead. So that's the news on PPP. Now let's flip over to EIDL. So the economic injury disaster loan, or EIDL as it's called, is the other loan that you go to SBA.gov to apply for. Unlike the PPP loan, where you have to work directly with a lender, on EIDL, your whole application process is going to be done online, and you're going to submit directly to SBA. So you're actually applying for a loan directly with SBA on EIDL, where with PPP, you're applying with a lending institution, whether it's a credit union, a bank, or a CDFI, or a fintech company. So that's how the two programs are different. So remember, when you come and you apply for EIDL, EIDL is a working capital loan program, but as the question was asked, is it open right now only for agricultural companies? The answer to that is a definitive yes. So right now the portal is open. So it was closed up until earlier this week, at which point SBA reopened the portal for small businesses that are in the agricultural sector, and also for small businesses that had applied early in March prior to SBA migrating over to a new platform. Those small businesses were encouraged to go ahead and reapply using the online portal. So that's the only folks that should be applying right now for the EIDL loan. It is anticipated that it will be open to other small businesses, but I don't have a definitive date on that. So right now, unless you're in the agricultural sector or you fall into that category that you applied for EIDL, but it was earlier in March, and you had an application number that started with a 2, you won't be able to apply right now. But stay tuned, because we expect, like I said, that it will reopen for small businesses to apply for that loan program. And keep in mind that for the PPP, that's a forgivable loan. So if you use it for its intended purpose, then you can ask for forgiveness, and up to 100% of the PPP can be forgiven, which means you wouldn't owe anything. Or if a portion of it is forgiven, then you would only owe whatever the balance is at the 1% for 2 years. On the EIDL side of things, that is a loan program. The only part of EIDL that is forgivable is the advance piece. And the advance piece of EIDL is $1,000 per employee up to a $10,000 cap. So if you have 1 employee, you can get a $1,000 advance. If you have 5 employees, you qualify for a $5,000 advance. But if you had 20 employees, the maximum is still only $10,000 that you could get advanced to you, which is forgivable, and it doesn't calculate it into your EIDL loan. So 2 distinct differences, 2 distinct programs. You can apply for both. I know I heard it mentioned earlier that for PPP, you can apply with more than 1 lender. That's true. The only word of caution I will give you on that is if you do choose to apply with more than 1 lender for PPP to increase your chances of getting your loan processed, please let whatever lender that finally puts through your loan know that you've applied with others. That way, there isn't any confusion, because once there's a PPP loan tied to your EIN, then you can only have that 1 loan. So you just want to make sure that you make the others aware once you decide on a lender that's going to go ahead and take you through the process for PPP.
Jared, can you put your contact information in the chat box?
I sure can.
And Crystal,
And then,
can I switch it over to you?
Yes.
Yep,
And,
there we
and
go.
then, Terry, we would like to have a conversation with you to see if there's anything that can help the mom and pop apartment building owners, as Mr. Bennett asked. But we'll talk about that offline, and maybe that'll be another topic for next week. We do appreciate your input, and thank you for coming on. We are at 12:07, guys, so we don't want to hold you up for the rest of the day. Thank you so much. Come back on next Thursday. We will have more information, because as you can see, every day there is a update with this COVID-19, and it has so many moving parts that we need to address all of them. We want to thank Joe Rouzan for participating. Yay! And if you have any questions, you can email me. My email address is there, and that you want to direct to Mr. Rouzan. I think they put their information in there as well. Thank you, Angela, for participating. We appreciate it. Anybody have any questions?
Thanks for having me.
And I know her information has been put in there. Go to their website. You guys, we got plenty of things to do, plenty of time. So participate in all webinars. Stephen, thank you so much. Mr. Bennett, thank you. Dr. Williams, thank you. I think Edwin is gone, but thank you, Edwin. So everyone that contributed. Terry, you're my man. And we will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Be safe. Take care of yourself, and gradually implement yourself back into the world. But go outside and get some sun.
Great job. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Stay
Bye,
healthy.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.